Hi, good day. Welcome to the Sword and Trowel Bible Fellowship as we continue our services and our family services and studying our love languages. This is part 2 in our series on discovering your love language. We started the last one last week for Valentine's Day, and we got through the first of the love languages, the one that was words of affirmation. We're going to be continuing our services today. I hope you had a blessing out of last week's service. I pray that today's will be a blessing for you as well. It'll strengthen you in your relationship and help you in your growth with the Lord and growth with each other. I made the comment last week about a movie that my wife had got me. I actually have the movie. I don't know if you guys can see that on that video camera out there. The name of the movie is You're So Cupid. It was a really cute movie, and we talked about how there was a couple of teenage sisters who turned out to be matchmakers, and they were helping people get relationships together while their parents' relationship was falling apart. And as through the course of the movie, you discover that the dad was actually Cupid, that he had given up his life as a god to marry this mortal girl, and they had a couple of daughters, and he inadvertently passed his gifts of matchmaking and relationships onto them, and then they ended up casting a love spell on the same boy and both falling in love, and it was just a riot, all the different things going on. But one of the things that stuck out was how the mom and the dad, even though he was Cupid, was not able to keep their marriage together, and they were on the road to divorce. And I also revealed in the course of the movie that the girls do manage to get their parents back together, but the problem wasn't that he had fallen out of love with her or she had fallen out of love with him. The problem was that they just were not communicating that love to each other in a proper way. And in our service on discovering your love languages, we've been taking a look at a couple of books. The first one, of course, is the Bible. And so we're going to open up with our Bibles. If you have them, please turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. The text that we used is the same as last week. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8. Charity or love suffers long and is kind. Love envieth not. Love vaunteth not itself, or is bragging of itself, or talking about how great itself is. Is not puffed up or proud, does not behave itself unseemly. That means that it doesn't act inappropriately in a way that it shouldn't be. Seeks not her own, is not easily provoked, thinks no evil. Love does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. And the beginning of verse 8 there says, love never fails. Our recap for those of you who might have missed last week's service, we had related love to different languages. We talked about how I could be speaking a language up here, but if you spoke Chinese and you spoke Russian and you spoke Portuguese and you listening online, maybe you spoke Swahili, I don't know all the different languages that there are in the world, but none of us would be able to communicate to each other because we all speak a different language. And the reality of the situation is that in order for us to be able to communicate, one of us is going to have to learn the other person's language. Either you're going to have to learn mine, or I'm going to have to learn yours so that I can talk to you or that you can hear me properly. And we talked about how that language difference proceeds into the area of love. This book that I had mentioned last week called The 5 Love Languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts by Dr. Gary Chapman is an excellent book. If you get the chance, I would highly encourage that you pick this up and take a look at it. And it deals with 5 primary love languages that everybody speaks and how we relate to each other love in a different way. And I talked about how even in our English language, how English is spoken different in England than it is here in the United States, and different in Canada than it is in Australia. Or the brogue, the accent that they have up in Ireland, and think about the accents that we have even up in the Boston area or New York with the Bronx accent, Brooklyn accent, compared down to the Louisiana Bayou, and the Creole, the Cajun, and that area down in Georgia and the Deep South, and how everything is different. And even though we speak the same language, the English language, there are different ways that we can communicate to each other, and certain words mean certain things, and everything is different. And our problem with love is that many of us speak a different different language. I talked about how the language that you grew up in your home, your native tongue, is that language that you were raised with, and love is that same way. And that the love language that was shown between your parents is probably the same kind of love language that you have today. We also talked about love being like a bank account. And when you have money and you go to put it into your bank account, if you do not have the correct account number, you can't put money into your bank. And it's the same with love. You know, we try to share love with each other, but sometimes people, just like they speak different languages, they speak a different love language. And when I try to share their love with them, they don't receive it as love. And likewise, them sharing love with me is in a love language that I am not able to communicate with. And so we're trying to share love with each other, but neither of us can realize that love that's being shared, and it doesn't come across, and we don't feel loved. Last week, we laid the groundwork for this, and then we got into our first love language. We mentioned that there were 5 love languages. Just to recap, the 5 languages we have are words of affirmation was the first one. Then we have quality time was the second one. The acts of gift giving, giving or receiving gifts. We also talked about how acts of service and also physical touch and that desire to want to be able to have that physical human contact were the languages of love. And we had been able to get through the first one, which is words of affirmation. And I gave you some homework if you were with us and listening. I encouraged you to all think of certain ways that you'd be able to affirm those that you love. Compliment them. Maybe tell them, hey, you look good today. You're looking really sharp. Compliment how they do things. And I wonder how you did that and if you worked with that. I made a statement that both couples should try to compliment and affirm one another. And maybe some of you could say, well, I've been doing that. I did like you said. And I've been giving compliments to her, and she loves it, and she's more than happy, and she's been doing the same for me. But I don't really get anything from it. It doesn't really do anything for me. And maybe the reason is that language of love that you have is not words of affirmation. Maybe it's something like this. The wife is thanking the husband, and he loves it. And it makes him feel appreciated for all the things that he does for her. And he's starting to feel that love. And he's been doing all those things for her, but she and her thinking is like, well, this is nice, but I'm just really not getting much out of it. And maybe that reason is because that language of love that you speak is not words of affirmation, which tonight is going to bring us to our second love language, and that is quality time. To lead into it, I might use the illustration of something you might say. You know, my husband is a good provider, and he takes care of me, and he compliments me all the time. But preacher, he never spends any time with me. What good is all of that other stuff that he does if he's never with me? Do you know what that is? That is quality time. If you feel that way, and in your relationship, and you love, and the thing that you are looking for out of your relationship is just to be able to have time to be with that person, then quality time might be the love language that you have primarily in your life. And some of you listening out there online might already be getting something to pause or stop this video so you can run and grab a notepad and a piece of paper and a pencil so you can take some notes and be able to share that with your husband and say, aha, this is the way that you need to share love. What is quality time? Quality time is that desire for attention. The girl who just said that statement that I mentioned above, she is saying, I would like my husband to focus some of his attention on me. Time with her or him. Doing things with her or him. Quality time is this. It is giving undivided attention. Quality time is not sitting in the living room streaming videos on your computer or watching a ball game on TV, or binge watching your favorite episodes of whatever you like to watch, and her sitting over there. That is not quality time. Quality time is not sitting there watching the ball game with all your friends and getting excited while she sits on the chair over on the other side of the room and she doesn't care at all. And some of you guys are saying, yeah, it is. I mean, I'm getting together with my buddies. That's quality time. Well, it might be quality time for you, but it's not quality time for her. Quality time means that the TV is off, means talking to each other. Quality time is that walk with the two of you alone. Quality time is time eating dinner together. I don't know how you guys eat dinner in your home. Ever since my kids have been little, we have always made sure that there are no electronics on and that the entire family is sitting at the table so that we can eat dinner together as a family. Why do we do that? Because it's quality time. And we get to know some of the things that our kids like and that our spouse likes as we communicate during the course of the meal without that interruption and that distraction from other things. Like those families who like to sit around, eat in the chair in the living room while watching television. And there's no communication and there's none of that getting to know each other, and because all their focus is on that television. That is not quality time. You know, you can tell the difference between people who have been married for a long time and people who are dating. Just think, when you quality time, you might be having dinner together and you might go out to a restaurant. And you can tell the difference between married couples and dating couples. Dating couples go out to the restaurant to see each other. Married couples go out to a restaurant to eat. There's no looking around and seeing each other. I mean, you get together for dinner and you go out to dinner. It's just, let's get together and chow down. And maybe you can stop for a moment while you're waiting for your food to come and look around and try to see some of those other young couples who are skipping the meal so they can just sit there and stare at each other. And those silly couples, and we get a kick out of that. But that's what they're doing. That's quality time. Quality time is that thing together that's giving specific attention to each other. I can give the illustration of me at the gym. Back years ago, before I met my wife, I used to work at the gym all the time. Not work at the gym, go to the gym. And after I would get off, you can't tell now looking at me, can you? But I used to be a bodybuilder, and I used to go to the gym and work out all the time. And I work out for several hours a day. And I would get off of work at 5, 6 o'clock, and I would go to the gym and work out for 2 or 3 hours, get out of there 8, 9 o'clock, go get something to eat, go home and go to bed. Well, then I met my wife, and I got married, and then I wanted to go to the gym. But there was a problem. She didn't want me to go. She didn't want me to go because she wanted to be able to have that time with me. And she was saying, well, if you're going to go and be at the gym all night after work, I'm never going to see you. I want you here with me. She wanted to have that quality time. I can think about my son Colin. And it's become very evident as I've been studying these love languages and looking through these things. Colin's primary love language is quality time. And there was a couple nights ago, he wanted to play a card game. And everyone else, the other kids had gone to bed, and I actually let him stay up late. And we sat there and we actually played not just one, but 2 rounds of this card game that he wanted to play. And it was just him and me. What was I doing? I was giving him quality time. Time where we're alone and together. Colin, he loves video games, and he will sit and he will talk about video games, and it's stuff that I don't want to hear at all. And I struggle with that because he'll be telling me about these video games that he sees and video games that he plays, and I don't care. I don't care at all. But what he's doing with it is he's trying to reach out and tell me about that, something that's important in his life to him. And a problem that I have to work with is it has to be important enough for me to stop and listen. Colin also likes to play the video game Minecraft. It's a game, some of you might know what it is. It's kind of like a bunch of, like a simulated life with Lego characters, for lack of a better way to put it. But you can do it with a split screen, and different people can play. And Colin will come in and he will want to play, and my wife to play, and me to play, and one of the other kids to play, and we'll all sit together and play those different things. And what are we doing? We're giving quality time. because it's something that's important to him, and spending time with him gives him quality time. Some of you men, I remember I heard the story, a pastor was saying the story about how he had a part-time job working as a painter, and he would be at work and all of a sudden his phone would ring and he'd be his wife. And he's like, "Hi honey, is everything okay?" And she says, "Are you thinking about me?" And his reaction that he wanted to say is, "No, at the moment I'm thinking about paint." But what's she doing? She is reaching out to him because at home she has been missing him. What is she looking for? Quality time. My wife will send me little emojis on my cell phone, and I get little text messages of little kissy faces and little animals like kissing and stuff and making out, and she says, "I love you." And you know what? That it really is nice to be getting those messages. But I know at home when she's sending them that she's thinking about me, and she would probably rather me be here with her rather than at work doing what I'm doing. And what is going on? What is she talking about? Quality time. I can give you a story about my mom. Quality time it works around in different ways and different things. Quality time can be that walk I mentioned, where you and your spouse, you may just go out and you take a walk for a long time. And the thing that's important about it is not that the exercise is being made; it's that you are alone together and able to talk. My mom tried to pop that on my dad once. I remember as a teenager, my mom wanted to start walking with my dad, and we lived across the street from the high school. Behind the high school was the track and field, and they had the plan that they were going to go over to the high school track and do laps around the track. And my mom had the plan, this is great, we're going to be together, we're going to be able to talk to each other. And as they're talking, my dad is thinking, well, let's just do a couple laps around the track, and my mom is thinking 3 or 4 miles, and she just wants to keep on walking and talking. And my dad, he's under the impression that it's for exercise, and so so he is just not interested in that. And then all of a sudden what starts happening is my dad takes off running. And he's like, "Okay, well, you want to walk? I'll run, we'll get exercise." And so he starts running while my mom starts walking by herself. And as they get around, he comes around, he laps her, he's like, "Hey," as he walks, he runs on by, and she's like, "Hey," back. He does 2 or 3 laps, and he's all done, and he said, "Oh, I'm tired, I think I'm just going to go on home, and I'll see you back at the house." And he just ruins the whole thing. All right, it did not serve the purpose that it's supposed to be. What she really wanted, she wasn't looking for the exercise, she was looking for the quality time. And some of you guys are saying, "Well, I don't have time right now for that, preacher, but I want to one day. I'm trying to build something for us, and so I'm going to work. I don't have a lot of time to spend with my wife, but I have a career, and I'm trying to work hard, and my plan is to be able to get us all financially set and a nice house and everything all set so that one day I will have time to be able to do that quality time with my wife. But right now I'm just trying to build something." And I want to ask you, friend, if you have that attitude in all of your goals and everything and trying to build that, are you going to be satisfied to enjoy that one without her? Because she might not make it to the end of that journey if you leave her out. And what is your way of saying, "I love you, you're important to me"? And of course, it may be switched the other way around. Certainly, it could be a career woman and a husband who just wants to share some time with her, but she is all wrapped up in her career, and she doesn't have time for the family, and she doesn't have time for her husband, and she doesn't have time for her kids because her career is so important to her. And if your efforts to be successful, are you prepared to do it alone? There was another movie called 9 Lives. Kevin Spacey was in another cute little movie. And in that movie, 9 Lives, it is about a man. He has got a successful career. He's rich. He has skyscrapers. He has airlines. He has all these things. And while he's all consumed with his business and making his business better, he ends up having a near-death experience, and his soul gets transferred into the body of a cat while his body is in the hospital in a coma. And as he now has to live his life out as a cat, he ends up becoming the pet of his family. And he starts to see from the other point of view of what it was like for him as he is watching his kids grow up without him, missing his son growing up, his daughter now a teenager and missing that growing up with her, and his wife on the verge of leaving him not because he was cheating, not because he was unfaithful, not because he was a drunk, not because he abused her, but why? Because he never spent time with them. Quality time. And quality time was their love language. and he was not communicating love to them. And the reality of the situation is you might be able to have both your career and your marriage, but you had better give your marriage enough time. You had better give your spouse the preference. Like words of affirmation, quality time has different dialects. We spoke about how things are spoken in different ways, and some words can mean something in one place, and then they mean something entirely different in another place, even though it's the same language. And quality time has different dialects that fall under it too. The first one I would like to share some of these with you. The first one I would like to share with you is that quality time is togetherness. Quality time is togetherness. Togetherness does not mean proximity. Just because Samantha, my wife, and I are in the same room does not mean that we are together. Togetherness is focused attention. Write this down if you're taking notes. Togetherness needs focused attention. I could give you the illustration about a dad. If you ever have a kid, and any of you are parents, you've done this, where you have your child, and your child is little, and they get to the age where they start rolling a ball back and forth to you, and you're each other. So I can picture myself sitting here on the floor. I've got my legs spread. I got the ball between them. My child is over there with their legs spread, and we're rolling the ball back and forth to each other. That is quality time. I have focused attention, focused on my child. We're having a good time. Quality time is not this. I'm sitting in the chair reclined, watching the ball game, while he's over there with the ball, flicking it, shooting it to me, and I look a bit down about every 5 or 10 minutes or so. I see the ball sitting by my feet, and I just kind of flick it back to him and go back and watching the game. That is not quality time. The same game, the same thing we're playing, in the same room, one we're together, one we're not. That is not being together when my attention is focused on something else. Being together is when my attention is focused with the one that I'm with. Quality time togetherness is focused attention. In quality time, the activity is not what is being important, but it is the togetherness that is important. I remember before I met my wife, I had met a girl and I had asked her out on a date, and she had said yes, and we planned for this date to go horseback riding. And so I went to pick her up to go horseback riding, and she told me at that time that she actually had invited some other friends to come along with us, and that we were now no longer going to go horseback riding, but instead we're going to go for a hike. And I like hiking just fine. But I was not anticipating on going out with a group of strangers. I was anticipating going out with this girl that I had met that I liked alone. And so we ended up going hiking, and I pretended to have a good time, and I pretended to be social, but I was actually having a miserable time. And then we all decided to go out and eat afterward, and it was the whole group of us went out to eat. And then after that, they decided to go around a movie and go back to one of their apartments, and everyone sat in the room together, and they're watching the movie. And I got up and left. I just said, excuse me, I'm getting tired, I'm going to go home now. And I didn't speak to her again. And she called me a couple days later and left a message saying about what a great time that she had. And I never responded. Why was that? Because I was looking to have some focused attention and togetherness with this person that I was interested in, but that is not what happened. And it is the togetherness and the activity that is going on. The activity is not what is important. It is that time together that's important. I never saw that girl again because I was very upset with what happened. What happened was we were not together. That was not quality time. And we find that quality time, there's different ways as we're looking at it. There's that togetherness that's important, being together in that conversation. And along with that togetherness, there is also, if you're not doing an activity but you're together, then that togetherness can also be in the form of quality conversation. The second dialect in quality time that I want to look at is quality conversation. There's a difference between quality conversation and words of affirmation. We discussed words of affirmation. Words of affirmation is, boy, you're pretty today. You look really pretty in that dress today. Wow, you look so handsome. Quality conversation is not giving compliments. Quality conversation is dialogue. It's not, hey, you look good, but it's the things around it. And then some of you
Some of you right now, you're sitting here saying, I'm not really getting a whole lot of this. Quality time dialogue is talking about you becoming involved in their life. It's about sharing experiences with each other. It's about sharing thoughts with each other. It's about sharing feelings with each other. It's about sharing desires with each other. And by the way, when we're talking about quality conversation, it needs to be uninterrupted. Quality conversation does not have interruptions. Can anyone think of a way that a conversation gets interrupted today? You're having a conversation with someone, you're talking with someone, and does any of you know something that can happen? Any ideas? Yes?
Someone can talk over you.
Well, hopefully someone's not around talking over you. Any other ideas? Yes?
You can get distracted on something else.
What's the way that you can get distracted from your quality conversation?
TV, video games, other person.
You could do that, kind of another person. The one I'm thinking about is something that all of us, just about everyone on the planet has. Thankfully, I don't have mine here with me right now. Hopefully, it doesn't go off wherever it is. It is a cell phone. All right. Cell phone is a huge distraction. I could be sitting having a quality conversation with my wife. She could be telling me about something very important and very special to her, or some deep thoughts and feelings that she has, and all of a sudden, ring, my phone goes off. And my instinct answer is to just pick it up and answer it. All right. I remember I was watching a TV show once where a couple was out on a date, and she's talking to him, and all of a sudden he answers his phone, and she looks at him and says, "You did not just answer your cell phone." But he did. You know, and if I'm smart, I'll shut the phone off, but that's not what we do. I mean, it's instinctive. Everyone has a cell phone nowadays. Just pick up the phone and answer it. What is that? That's an interruption. And what does that say? That sends the message to the person that you are with is, the conversation that you are having with me right now is not that important. I've got to take this call. If you've ever seen the movie Hook, that was a Steven Spielberg movie. Hook was actually about Captain Hook and Peter Pan had kids, and it was back in the 1990s, and it was a great movie. But then as you're getting into the movie, you find that Robin Williams is in it, and he's married to the granddaughter of Wendy from the Peter Pan story. But he is a businessman, and he is always involved in business, and he is having kind of like an argument with his wife, and all of a sudden his phone rings, and she says, "Don't you dare answer that phone." And he says, "Wait a minute, I have to take this call." And he answers that phone, and she walks over, grabs the phone out of his hand, and chucks it out the window. What was he doing? He was having an interruption to his conversation. An interruption where they were having quality time. My wife loves her cell phone. And they have all these cool apps that you can get on your cell phone, things that you can do on your cell phone rather than just talk on the phone. Can anyone think of one that seems to be very important in today's world? Yes? Video game. No, I was thinking more Facebook.
That's a big one.
Facebook is a big one. Yes? What? Snapchat. Okay. Yes? YouTube. Well, yes, we could have all those things, but Facebook is one of the things I was thinking about. Now, my wife at the moment is a little bit better. She's had ups and downs, but I remember seeing, she would sit in that chair for hours just looking at Facebook, and she gets very involved with the things on Facebook. She, gets a lot of news from Facebook. She gets very into some deep political conversations on Facebook. Of course, some religious conversations as well on Facebook, and she'll be sitting over their chair like, "Oh no," or "Oh, I can't believe it." And I get to the point where I'm scared to even ask what's going on. And it's something going on in the world. I'm like, is the world crashing? Is the world coming to an end? Is it just some rumors going around? And I'm to the point where I don't even want to ask. And I just don't want to know. But I'm also almost scared not to ask, because what if what's happening is really important and I need to know? And so what's going on? And she tells me this. 10 minutes later, it's something else going on. But people can get so involved in those things. What does stuff like that do?
Separates.
It does. separates you from your family, and you are not able to have moments of quality time because you're so involved in your social media. Okay, please calm down, sweetheart. That's my daughter. She's having some fun with a blanket. It's good to be 6 years old. It's really good. All of these things, they ruin quality time. They ruin conversation. Oh, I actually got ahead of myself in my notes. Didn't even plan on it. I got way ahead of my notes. What on earth did I do? I don't know. Well, sorry about that. We'll just skip on. I preached a whole page and didn't even plan on getting it. I guess it's good to go over your sermon and practice before you actually get up there and do it. All right. I can give you an example, quality conversation. Quality conversation is about listening to what is going on. I have mentioned that it's uninterrupted. We talked about words of affirmation are about saying something nice about something, while quality conversation is dialogue. It is important to be listening to what is said and be very attentive to what is said. By the way, and this one's tough for me to do, and as many of you men, and maybe some of you women have the same problem where you want to try to fix things. Quality conversation is about listening, and it's not so we can give solutions. We're listening so we can give understanding to the person's feelings. Quality conversation is when they're sharing those feelings with you, they are doing it so that you can feel what they feel, and many times they don't want a solution. I have a tendency to give one. I can give you an example of this. Say my wife is having a quality conversation with me, and she's talking to me about problems with the kids or some sort of problem that she's going on. Or I can remember some of our older kids when they were still living at home, and some of the girls, I mean, they're going through problems at school. They got problems with this boy that they like, and things aren't going right, and they're having problems with their friends, and so such difficulty trying to hold those teenage relationships together, and they're upset and they're crying and they're telling me about it, and they get about halfway through their explanation. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, stop right there. I don't need to hear any more. Okay, this is what you need to do. Do this, boom, 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 do these three things, and everything will work out just fine. And I think I've given the solution to get the answer, and then they just get mad. You see, they're not looking for the solution. They had no interest in my solution at all, could care less what I think about it. What they're looking for is that I am understanding of their problems. And they might not even need a solution at all, just that I actually can care and be there for them. And sitting there trying to find a solution doesn't always work. She just wanted to be, my daughter, one night we had one of these exact same conversations, and it went bad, and then she was in her room crying, and I got upset with her and came downstairs, and that didn't go anything at all like what she wanted. What she wanted was just to be able to finish her story and have me say something like, wow, man, I understand how you feel. Or, wow, I can't believe that. I just can't believe that that's happening to you. And she doesn't even need a solution at all. Just needs someone to listen. Here's some tips for quality conversation that I've learned over the years. Just some things to help you on your journey. Parents, men, I focus on men because I am a man. Maybe your women are having problems with these things too, and you're having trouble with quality time with your family, or maybe your husband, his love language is quality time and yours is not, and you struggle with some things. Well, here, let me give you some tips for maintaining quality conversation. Number one, maintain eye contact when your spouse is talking. Maintain eye contact when you're dealing with your spouse. This does a couple things for you. One, it keeps your attention on what's being said. If I'm making eye contact with you and you're looking at me, all right, you are paying attention to what I'm being said. Number two, it keeps you from getting hit. I mean, my wife is sitting here talking, and I just stop it, and I'm like fuddling around with something down here on the floor, and all of a sudden I just get a whack on the side of the head. I'm talking to you. Why aren't you listening to me? Well, this helps you avoid that happening. Maintain eye contact. And by the way, when you don't maintain eye contact, what the message you are conveying to them is that you would rather be doing something else than listening to the story that they have to tell you. And I encourage you to maintain eye contact when you're talking with that person. Number 2, tips for quality conversation. Don't listen to your spouse or your mate and then start doing something else at the same time. I mean, you're listening to her. She's like, "Oh, this is terrible. I'm going through all this," and I come over here and I start picking up the counter while she's talking to me. I mean, that's just no. That's just not smart. That's not a smart thing to do. I mean, come on, just pay attention to when people are talking to you. Think about that. Undivided attention is what we're looking for in quality time. Now, there may be a time when you have to do something, and you can't be in that conversation. The dinner is in the oven and it's burning. The dog is at the door and he's about to mess in the house, and you've got to get the dog out, or something happens and you actually have to stop that. I mean, don't just get up and leave, or don't try to weasel out. Just take a moment and stop and say, "I'm sorry, I have to do this. Hold that thought. I'll be right back. I want to hear your story. It's important to me. I would really like to hear what you're talking about. I'll be right back. Hold that thought." And then go do that, and then come back. Don't try to weasel out of there. If it's a conversation, this is another one that I have a problem with. My wife, something important will happen in her life, and or something, a doctor's appointment or something, or something didn't go quite the way she is. And my wife has a tendency to reach out to different people to get their advice. So she will talk to me, and then she will give her dad a call and tell him the story, and then she'll give her mom a call and tell her the story, and she might give her brother a call and tell him the story and get all their advice, and then she'll come back and she'll tell me again. And she's told so many people, she's even forgotten that she's telling me. And I could actually say, "Stop right there. I already know how this is going to turn out. I already heard this." But that's not what she needs. If she is taking the time to talk with me about it, it's obviously important to her. And me doing something like this, okay, and just getting closer and closer to that door and trying to find a way that I can weasel out of there, that is not going to work. All right, just take the time and listen to it. It's important to her, and it is sending a specific message to her. When you don't listen, it means you don't care about her, and you don't care about her feelings, or his feelings, vice versa. Number 3, listen to the feelings. Listen for feelings. Most of the time, quality time, quality conversation, you can tell that there is something going on, that there is you can understand. See, what they are trying to get is they want to express what is important to them to you, and they want you to feel what they are feeling. And it's important that you try to listen for that and understand those feelings, and understand that they want you to feel what they're feeling. And by the way, it's okay when you think you know to confirm. It's okay to say, "Wow, I can tell you're really struggling with this, aren't you?" Or you can say, "Wow, this is really upsetting for you, isn't it?" And it's okay to ask those questions and confirm what they're feeling. It's okay to say that. Confirm those feelings. Number 4, tips for quality conversation: observe body language. If his fists are clenched, he might be angry. And if she has tears running down her face and she is sniffing and doing that while she's talking, there's a chance that she might be upset. Look for body language and observe body language. Look for these things in quality time. And, I see this happen in movies sometime, where someone's notes disappear. I had my kids running around here earlier, and I think some of them took off with one of my notes. And so I'm going to have to do something really stupid, and I do apologize for that. My son Colin is operating the camera for us today. Colin, would you mind stopping that video, just pushing that button on the back? We're going to pick it up here in a minute. I do apologize.
Sorry about that. We're back. I did find my notes after all. We're talking about quality conversation. The next thing is refuse to interrupt when having that. You know, one of the biggest problems that I have in my household with my kids is that we are always interrupting each other. And I am always getting after people. Stop interrupting, don't interrupt. And the kids will start to fight. I start telling the story, and why are you interrupting me? Don't interrupt. Refuse to interrupt that conversation. And even I have problems with that too. And we really need to try our best not to do that. Try our best not to interrupt that conversation and to let them speak. You know, our goal in quality conversation is to discover the thoughts and the feelings of the person that we're talking with. Not to defend or correct, but to understand. To understand that quality conversation. When people communicate with each other, there are two types of communicators. I've labeled them a couple different ways. The first one is I'm going to label the Dead Sea, and the other one the Babbling Brook. Let me explain. The Dead Sea is a body of water over in Israel, and all it does is receive. The Dead Sea doesn't give anything back. All it does is receive. It never gives anything out. I think of this and relate it to that silent person who never talks. I mean, they are silent. They just talk. Everything is, they try not to let things bother them. When they hear things, they keep it to themselves. They all hold it in. They always soak it in. They never say a word. That's the Dead Sea. They just soak it in all day long and keep everything to themselves. The next is the Babbling Brook. I really don't think I need to explain to you what the person of the Babbling Brook is. I mean, they don't keep anything in. They just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk all day long. And sometimes you see where these couples will actually get together, and and many times they'll say, they'll get together, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, this is wonderful. I mean, he listens to everything I say, and I talk, and he takes it all in, and he cares about everything that I say, and this is wonderful. This is perfect." And he says, "This is perfect. I never have to say anything. I mean, she talks, and that's fine, and it makes her happy, and I don't care, and I'm fine." And they get married. And they detest each other. And their marriage falls apart. And you're trying to figure out what has happened. And, in reality, you find that, she really did every once in a while want to have some conversation back. I mean, she talks, and she want to almost go over and kick him just to make sure that he's alive because he never says anything. And she did want some conversation once in a while. And you come to find out that he did want some peace and quiet every once in a while. And he didn't need to listen to her talking constantly. And they have those different ways, and you really need to watch out for that. You people who are dating, if you're in that type of relationship, just be careful. Be careful about that. Those of you who are married, well, it's too late. I mean, you're stuck. You're just going to have to find a way to work through it. But be careful for those things. The third dialect in our quality time is quality activities. Quality activities. If I were to ask you the question, I feel most loved by my mate when he or she does this, what would your answer be? I mean, what would you think the thing that makes you feel love the most? And if you were to say something like, well, I love it when he takes me to this place, or I love it when we can go and do this together, and we can go do this activity together that we share, and that's when I feel most loved. Well, that's a good indicator that quality activities are the way that you communicate love. What is a quality activity? A quality activity is something that one or both of you are interested in. And when you're doing it, it is not what you are doing, but who you are doing it with. Who you are doing it with is what is important in a quality activity. Few essential ingredients. Must be an activity that both of you want to do. I mean, there's no sense in planning a quality activity if neither of you want to do that activity. Samantha and I we're probably not going to have a quality activity by going up to Watkins Glen to watch a NASCAR race.
I mean, neither of us are really into NASCAR. I don't think we've ever seen or even heard a race since we've been married. All right, that's not something that we're interested in. And if you and your spouse, you're all into NASCAR and you like that, and that's a quality activity, something that you can do for it, have at it. If you invite us to come along with you, I'm sorry, we're probably, I already know that we've got other plans. We're not going to be able to make it. We're just not interested in doing that. Whatever floats your boat, but it has to be something that you're willing to do. At least one of you is that wants to do or is interested. Number two, if it's something that you want to do, it has to be something that your mate is willing to do. If I bought tickets to a concert with either of the bands playing Foreigner or Journey for me and my wife, that's just not going to work. Those are two bands that she hates. See, my wife was in several relationships before she and I met and got together, and she had some relationships that ended quite badly. And all of those relationships, her songs, the song that you have and share with those people, happen to be from either one of those groups, Foreigner or Journey. And so every time she hears them come on the radio, she instantly has bad feelings about those bad relationships and how they ended. And if I were to buy a concert and try to take her to one of those, she's not going to have any fun at all. That is not a quality activity. Quality activity has to be something that at least one of you wants to do, but it's something that your mate, if they don't want to, that they are willing to do. And the next thing that's important with that is it has to be something that you know why you're doing it. And why you're doing it, and what's the motive behind it. The motive behind it is to express love by being together. A quality activity is something that you do to express love by being together. And this will provide a long-term memory that you can look back. My wife loves the group Celtic Women. And I do enjoy their music. And a few years ago, I had the opportunity to buy tickets to a Celtic Woman concert. And we were going to take the kids, but none of the kids except for our son David wanted to go. So it was the three of us. But the other kids, they went and spent the night with Grandma and watched who knows what on television. But we all went to see Celtic Women. And not since I was dating my wife, for all of those years, had I seen her as happy as she seemed on that night. She was so happy. I mean, she bought Celtic Women t-shirts and Celtic Women CDs and DVDs and all kinds of memorabilia. And I got to share that with her. And what is that? That is a quality activity that she wanted to do, that I was willing to do with her. And something like that provides memories. When we talked about that love bank and making a deposit, a quality activity is something that can bring a lasting memory, that is a huge deposit into that love bank. And that is a long-term deposit that you will be able to look back on for a very, very long time. Quality activities. Do they take time to do? Yes. Does it take planning? Yeah. Is it difficult? Sometimes. Do you have to give up your individual time to do it? Yup. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Quality time is an important love language that some people have, and it's very important to get to know that. Now, I don't know how long I've been preaching. I tried to keep this sermon to about an hour tonight. I know we don't have too much time left, but I wanted to quickly get into our third love language, and hopefully, okay. Colin's letting me know that we're about at the 50-minute point, so I got a few minutes left, and I'd like to share with you our third love language, which is giving and receiving gifts. Giving and receiving gifts is our third love language. And some of you, this doesn't really impact you. This doesn't really mean a whole lot to you. But some of you are saying, oh yeah, giving and receiving gifts. Come on, preacher, tell it to him good. Let's go over this one really good, because gifts are really important to me and I like to receive gifts. Well, we'll examine whether you are in it for the right reason or not in our next few minutes together. I can give you the illustration of my daughter, Jeannie. Quite a few years ago, Jeannie is now grown and married and lives out in San Diego. Her husband's in the Navy out there, and they have 3 children. They have blessed us with 3 grandkids, and it's great, and we love their family. But Jeannie, back when she was about 9 years old, gave me a gift one time. And some of you, I had never seen one of these before, but you can find them at a craft store. They don't cost a whole lot of money. Let me describe it to you. I'm sure you've seen something. It was a little, like a chess piece, the knight, or the horse, for those of you who don't play chess, and it was just plastic, and the chess piece was about this big. It had a little hole in the top with a top on it, and it was filled with sand. It had different colored sand, and that sand was in layers. There's like a green layer, and then blue, and then red, and it had a gray layer, and there was little swirls in it. And I'd never seen anything like that before. And I'm looking at this, and she says, "I made this for you, Daddy." And I sat there, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Now, I've seen these in the store since then. And they only cost a few dollars, and there's instructions, and you can put it together in about 5 minutes of time. But I come across it every now and then. We moved from Elmira up here to Bath, New York, and a couple days ago I was looking through a box, and I came across this little knight that Jeannie had given me. It had been moved around quite a bit, and all that sand, it wasn't all the many different pretty colors anymore. It was all just kind of lumped together in one color. But I sat there looking at this for a long time, and I started to cry. And I started to think about my little girl and how she was so young, and all the different things that we used to do together, and how I was her whole world. And now she's grown and gone, and she's got her family, and we don't hardly even talk anymore. And all of these feelings and all of this stuff started flooding back into my mind while looking at this horse. And I ever so carefully put it back in the box. And we have the box out there in our schoolroom is where it is at the moment. And I want to get that, and I want to put that up on a stand somewhere. And someone coming by and taking a look at it would see that, and they're like, what is that? What is that? This is just a screw up. That's not good. But when you're talking about receiving gifts, it's not the gift that's important. What's important is that what it makes you think, what it makes you feel when you got that gift. That Jeannie gave me that gift. Remember those ads that they had on TV for MasterCard a few years ago, and they would talk about, doing this, buying this fishing pole, so many dollars, buying this bait over here, so many dollars, paying for this fishing trip, so many dollars, teaching your son to fish for the first time, priceless. And there's some things that value cannot even accommodate. A value, you can't even put a value on it because it is important to me. I see that chess piece and I think of my daughter. I don't think of that chess piece. When you receive a gift of love, the gift is insignificant. The gift is immaterial. The gift reminds you of the one who gave you the gift. And if you want to know if receiving gifts is your language of love or not, ask yourself this question. Am I concerned with getting gifts? Or am I consumed with the one who gives me the gift? Am I consumed with those who would give to me in that way? A gift of love is something that you hold in your hand and then think of the one who is giving it to you. It reminds you of them. Now, if you don't want gifts because of that reason, and you just want gifts because you want gifts, that is not an expression of love on your part. That's an expression of covetousness. And if you listen to any of my other sermons, I can get a little bit forceful in my preaching. Just talk about covetousness a little bit. Covetousness is sin. Covetousness is materialism. That's where you want things and stuff. That's selfish. That's not love. And if you want gifts because you want gifts, and not because it reminds you of the person that gave it to you, that is not an expression of love, and this is not your love language. I can give you the illustration about my cousins years ago. I won't say their names. This was quite a few years ago. This is about the time that a home video recorder was invented. The big old home video recorders, it was almost as big as one you would make a movie. You take that big old VHS cassette, stick that in there. Camcorder was huge and would sit up on your shoulder, and you wrap your arm around it, and you had it. It's a lot different than the little camcorder that we're using to record our sermon here today. That's teeny tiny. It's like this big, and don't even have to touch it. It was a lot different back then. Well, this one year, my uncle had got this for Christmas. I don't know if he bought it for himself as a Christmas present or someone gave it to him, but it was the first present that they had opened, and they decided to tape Christmas. And then when the family would how we did it is everyone had Christmas with their individual families, and then they would all come to my grandma's house that night, and then the extended family would have Christmas together. That's how we did it when I grew up. And so he brought that tape, and he taped his family at Christmas and brought it to Christmas that night, and so we could all watch it. And you'd get some wires and hook it up to the television in the back, and you could watch what was on that tape. So as he's playing the tape, you see the Christmas tree, and then you'd see my cousins, and they'd go over and they would grab a present. Is there one for me? Unwrap it really quick. Oh, good. And throw it down. Oh, I want another present. And they'd go in and wrap something and throw it down. And they're just, is that a present? I want a present. Where's my next present? And they just went through them like crazy and like that. And I'm watching that. I got mad. I mean, that just irritated the dog out of me. Their love language was not receiving gifts. They just wanted stuff. And if you are like that and you do that in your family at Christmas time, I feel bad for you. You are missing such a blessing. I grew up, how my parents did it is we would assign someone the role of the present hander-outer. And it would be their job to come and hand out presents to people, and and it would just go around, and we would all sit and we'd take turns. And we would sit and someone would unwrap the present, and we would all sit and watch, and they would thank whoever gave that gift, and you could see their expression, especially if it was something that they enjoyed. And you could see that when I'm giving a gift of love, I want to see the reaction that it brings. That's important to me. I put a lot of time into that. That's important to me. And if you're just trashing through it, I might miss that reaction altogether. And then I'm forever wondering, I wonder if they understand that I love them. If your love language is giving gifts, that's the message you're trying to convey. When you give this gift is, I love you. And if they're going to receive that gift properly, they're going to have that thankfulness and that gratitude, and it's going to make them think of you. That is how you give and receive gifts properly. When you get married, you exchange rings in a marriage ceremony. Do you know why you do that? Do you know why husbands and wives exchange rings? It's a gift of love. And you can learn a lot about yourself by your attitude about what that ring says. I gave you the illustration about a man. Let's say a man, he comes and he gives his wife engagement ring, and he asks her to marry him. And this ring belonged to his mother. And he has this ring. His mother has passed away. He has her ring, and he gives this ring to his fiancée and asks her to marry him. And there's a couple different ways you could do that. I just want you ladies out there listening, and I want you to think about this. If this man had given the engagement ring to you and had said, "Here, will you marry me?" and handed this ring to you, what would your attitude be? How would you think about it? Now, there's a couple different ways. Answer this question for yourself. Some people might be overcome with emotion. Wow! This ring belonged to his mother. I mean, there's so much sentiment. This has his parents' love and all of this stuff. And this is a family heirloom. And this is important. This is important to him. And he's giving this to me. And this is special. This is something that's personal to him. Or would your attitude be something like, you're giving me a used ring? I mean, you couldn't even buy me something new? You didn't even spend any money on this. I mean, am I not worth anything to you? And they say engagement ring is supposed to be like 3 months' salary. I mean, you didn't even pay a penny for it. You already had it. I mean, this is nothing. And you're disappointed because it's not new, or because it belonged to someone else, or because you wanted him to spend more. What is your attitude when when you are doing this. When you're out with your friends and when you can tell when a lady is recently engaged, she's all excited about that, and she sits there and she's looking at her ring and like, oh, my ring's so pretty, and she just enjoys that. There was a girl that I work with at Michael's just recently got engaged for Christmas, and she just sits there and look at my ring. Well, when you're out with your friends and you do that, I mean, ladies, you do that. You come around and you talk to your friends and you show them your ring. What do you say to them when you're talking to them? Do you say, guess how expensive my ring was? I mean, my ring cost $7,000 or $10,000. I mean, my ring is more expensive than your ring. How expensive was your ring that your husband bought you? Maybe my husband loves me more because my ring is worth more than your ring. All right, guess how big the stone is in my ring? This ring is a 5-carat diamond. Or this ring is a 0.5-carat diamond. Or your ring doesn't have as big a stone as mine has. And you think about these things. Do you tell the story of how he sacrificially gave you that ring that belonged to his mother? Of how special and precious it is to him to share something so special and precious with you, and how much that means to you? Or are you more consumed with the size of the ring, the cost of the ring? See, if receiving gifts is your love language, you're going to be consumed more with the attitude of how it was, who he gave it to you and why, not what the monetary value is. Or even worse, would you say to your friends, he couldn't even give me a new ring. He already had this. He didn't even spend anything money on me. And you complain to your friends about something that he gave you. And man, I'll just tell you, if you find a woman like that, you might as well just junk her and get a new one, because someone like that's not even worth your time. There are people like that. And I shouldn't even be speaking about a sermon on love to them. I should be preaching on repenting of your sins and selfishness. And I can tell you one thing, ladies, if that is how you feel, receiving gifts is not your love language. Gifts may be purchased or made. And you can say, preacher, all of this is crazy. I mean, it's unimportant. I don't really care about any of these things. And I don't really care about all of this stuff. Okay? Let's just say that your love language is not receiving gifts. But let me encourage you to do something, and let me suggest something to you. Your love language might not be receiving gifts, but someone else's love language is someone that is close to you, someone that you care about, some person that you care about, maybe a spouse or a child, and you need to learn a second language. You need to learn that. By the way, if someone you love has receiving gifts as their love language, they will naturally have a tendency to give gifts. You can pretty much pick out if someone that you love has this as a love language, because they will like to give stuff to you all the time. And people, how you receive that gift can almost communicate just about as much love as it is to give one in the first place. When I talked to you last week, I talked about someone who had given flowers, and if you gave a bunch of flowers to your girlfriend on Valentine's Day, and her reaction, you're expecting it to be one of, oh, thank you, they're so beautiful, thank you for sharing this with me. Can't talk. It's an expression of love. But sometimes her attitude is, what, do you think you can buy my affection? What is this? I'm not interested in flowers. Well, you can tell right away that her love language is not gift giving. But listen to me, the way you receive that gift can communicate love to that person just as much as anything. Because lady, when you did that, you communicated to that man who gave you those flowers that he is unimportant to you. Receiving gifts tells just about as much anything as the act of even giving it. I can give you an illustration. This is about me. Years and years ago, my dad, and I kind of keep this, I'm like a closet. I do like Star Trek. and they call them Trekkies. All right, I would say I'm a closet Trekkie. I don't really share that information with people, except I've just shared it with the whole world now here online. But I don't really share that information. I kind of keep that private to myself. I grew up that way because of my dad. My dad liked Star Trek. He used to watch it back in the 60s, and Star Trek The Next Generation was on when I was a kid, and we would sit and watch that together, and we would have that together. Well, when I was about 16 years old, I decided to do something that I thought would be special for my dad. I decided to make him a Star Trek chess set. Now, my dad was a very smart person, and my dad was probably the most intelligent man that I've ever met in life, just with his natural knowledge. He was just smart. My father he was a smart person, and he competed in chess tournaments. And he wasn't, like Eddie Fisher, like on a national level, but he had won a lot of chess tournaments, and we played chess growing up, and I had never beaten my dad at chess. But it was a game that he loved. And so when I was 16, I decided to make for him a Star Trek chess set. Now, I went all out on this. I went out, and I didn't know a lot about stuff, but I went and I got some plywood, and I cut a big circle for the base. And then I actually glued 3 pieces of plywood together, and I cut that circle with a coping saw. Cut it by hand, and then I sat and I took a plane, and I got all the edges, all hand tools, all the edges smooth all the way around. So it was almost as perfect as a circle as I could get it to be. And then from there on, I took a rasp and I rounded all of those edges down so they all had a bevel, and the chess set looked like that. And as you're working with plywood and you're doing that, there's the layers of plywood. They make like rings in the wood. I took the time and I would sit and I make sure that all the rings were perfect. So you had 2 little rings all the way the outside going all the way around, and they looked perfect. It was spot on. And then I did that not just with 1 layer. I had a second layer of 3 pieces of plywood together, and then a third layer of 3 pieces of plywood, and they all had that beveled edge. And then after I had them all together, I went and I hand painted all of the little checkers on that chessboard of where it would be for the black and white pieces. And then I took that chessboard that I had made, and I stained it, and I put it with polyurethane, and I sealed it all up. And then I came to the pieces. Now, I'm an artist. In addition to preaching here at this church and working at Michael's, I mentioned in the past, I have a part-time job as an art framer. I also have an art studio, and I do commission pieces of art. If you were to visit our church here and you were just walking around and seeing our house, you would be able to see some of my pieces of art hanging on the walls. And I am an artist. And so I decided with these chess pieces I was going to make Star Trek versus Star Trek The Next Generation. And I went and I took for every single one of those pieces, and I drew all of those people. I had Captain Kirk, I had Mr. Spock, I had Dr. McCoy and Scotty and all the other people, and the rooks on the end were the Starship Enterprise facing different directions, and then all of the pawns in front were all security guards, and they were bent down like this with a phaser in the air, and I took the time and I hand drew all of those. And then I took colored pencils and I colored them all in as realistic as I could possibly make it. I had the shadowing and the shading, and for a 16-year-old kid, they look pretty good. And I did the same for the other side, Star Trek The Next Generation. Captain Picard and Commander Riker and Counselor Troy was the Queen, and you had Data and Worf, for those of you who watch Star Trek and know who these characters are. And again, the Next Generation Enterprise and the security guards in the front. And I sat there and I took the time to draw all of these, and then to make them stand up, I had them all cut out. I glued them onto cardboard and I cut them all out, and then I had in the back of them, I had a little piece of cardboard this way and then a base across the bottom, so they would all stand up and they would all fit right on their squares of the chess set and put them all together. Listen to me, it took me months to do this. I started working this in spring, and I would work on it after school. And I would go down to the basement and work on it. And my parents weren't allowed to see it. My mom could see it, but my dad was not allowed to see it. And I worked on it for months, all the way up. I didn't finish it until the week of Christmas. Hours every day. And I came and I was like right down to the wire, staying up really late at night, not getting much sleep, trying to get this done. And I got it done like a day or two before Christmas. And then I made a box for it to put everything together. I made the box, and then I drew on the front of it, I had the two starships, the Enterprise from each one, fighting each other, phasers blasting each other. And I had Star Trek versus Star Trek, The Next Generation chess set. And I made this nice box for it, and it was all covered with paper, and I colored it all in, and then I put packaging tape over it to kind of laminate it and seal it in. And I had it all together, and I gave my dad this chess set. And to me, talk about a gift of love. There was so much love that I put into this chess set, and he seemed to appreciate it. He really seemed to appreciate it. We played chess that day. Now, my dad, as I said, was a chess master. And I had, through all those years, I had never once beaten my dad. And I'm pretty good at chess. I had never once beaten my dad through all of those years, up until this day. And we're playing chess and, going through the different things, and I actually won. I was so excited. If you're wondering how you could tell what the pieces were on the back, all the time and effort I put into it, I didn't bother to draw them on the back side. What I did was I just labeled it. I put like Captain Kirk, King, or Lieutenant Uhura, Queen, or Spock, Bishop, and I just labeled what the pieces were, but who it was, and the pieces on the back, so you could read the back and see what your piece was if you didn't know by the shape. And I beat my dad, and I was so excited. I couldn't believe I had finally beat my dad at the game that he loved so well. This is what he said. He's like, "You only won because I didn't realize what the pieces were." I don't know what that would do for you, but right then, my father stripped away that victory that meant so much to me. And all of those months of work on that chess set, flush it right down the drain. Just flush. All of that. In that moment, all of that love, everything that I had done, by him saying that, meant to me that that chess set was not a chess set to him at all. It was worthless. You know what? My father and I never played chess again. And that chess set never even got opened again after that day. I have no idea what happened to it. It's long since gone. And I'm not bashing my dad. I love my dad very much. My dad, he's gone home to be with the Lord quite a few years ago. And I love my dad and I miss him. But on that day, everything that I had put that love into that chess set, I was going through a phase in life. I was 16 where men don't cry. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. He stripped all of that love away from me. And the only message he told me was, you and everything that you did is not important to me. Be very careful when receiving gifts. Be very careful, because your reaction can destroy the intention of that gift. Now, I don't necessarily believe that my love language is gift giving. My love language, I have seen, is primarily one that we're not going to get to today. It's called acts of service. But there is things that are involved with gift giving that are a service to me. Some of the things that I do when I give gifts to my wife, I will take elaborate times and go to elaborate lengths of things to find things for her. She likes the animated movie Anastasia. So one year for Christmas, I decided to go out and I wanted to find a replica Anastasia. For those of you who've seen the animated movie, the little music box that they had in there, a little replica music box, to be just like that movie. And I looked everywhere and I found one. And I gave that to her. And I was so excited. Another year for Christmas, I went out and I wanted to find my wife a replica of the necklace from Titanic, the heart of the ocean that they had, if you've seen that movie Titanic. And I went out and I found a replica of that, and I gave that to her. And there's time involved in these things that I do. This Christmas, or not this Christmas, this Valentine's Day, my wife and I, the kids got us into this video game called Skyrim. And I don't know if any of you play that, but we got into this video game, and and it's kind of funny because my wife did the same thing for me. So I gave her a necklace, and she opens it up, and there's a little story in it, and I say in her that she is my shield maiden. And It's got like a Viking tone to it. And she's like, is this off of Skyrim? And I just, yeah, kind of. And we laugh and chuckle. And sure enough, she gave me a pocket watch for Valentine's Day. That's a Skyrim pocket watch. And it has the little Skyrim symbol on it, and I collect pocket watches. And I was like, this is exciting. This is cool. You know what those are? Those are gifts of love, but there was time and effort that went into it. She had to look that up and see if there was even something like that she could find for me. And I loved it. And I had to take that time and effort to look up that thing for her to try to be something like this thing that we're doing, the quality time by playing this video game. But now we're doing this in the gifts of love. And you see, when you do this, and your gift of love is a gesture. It's something that means a lot. Something that you do that says things about your attitude. It's that gift of love, and that way that you give it. Some people communicate love by giving and receiving gifts, and that's what they do, and there's nothing wrong with that. A few thoughts here. Gifts and money. Gifts and money. Two categories under that. I'm going to label them really quickly. I know we don't have a lot of time left. My son's giving me the signal that I need to wind this down. I see you, Colin. Thank you. You don't need to keep doing that. Giving and receiving gifts. There's two different categories I'm going to talk about here. The first one is spenders. People who are spenders have no problem with giving and receiving gifts. And as you listen to this and you say, oh my gosh, the spenders and giving and receiving gifts, oh my goodness, this is just super duper. I love to spend money, and you're thinking, I can go out and I can buy him or her a gift every day, and I can show love that way, and this is just exciting, and this is going to be great. Well, for spenders, this isn't a problem. But some of you aren't spenders, you are savers. And I say savers to be nice. Savers. I'm being kind by using that term. And there are savers who are listening right now. And beware here. You know what happens when you get a spender and a saver married together? A saver gains emotional security by saving money. But in the midst of this, you forego the emotional needs of your spouse who is a spender. And you can go out and you can price match and nitpick and try to find the cheapest thing that you can find everywhere, and you might save $1 or $2 or $5 or $10, and you're all proud of yourself, and you slayed a big one by saving all that money. But what you're doing is your mate never senses from you the emotional needs that he or she has through the gift giving. Be very careful of that. And just a note, starting to get a little hoarse here. When you invest in the one that you love, it is an investment that has manifold returns. And it is the smartest investment that you're ever going to make, that gift of love. Giving that gift of love, it's an important thing. Don't be shy about giving, or don't be stingy about giving in the area of money when it comes to gifts of love. The second thing is the gift of presence. And I'm not talking about physical presence like you give at Christmas. I mean your presence, your person as a body. I mentioned that movie Hook earlier. Well, earlier in that movie Hook, you find that dad who is so involved in business, he doesn't have time to attend his son's baseball game. And he misses the game, and the son kept looking up there, and he so wanted his dad to be able to come to that game. And he looked out, and he sees in the audience, he sees his mom sitting there, but his dad did not make it, and how it crushed him. They have that song, Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon. If you ever listen to that song, I lived part of that my life. I was always working, always a workaholic from sundown to sun up to sundown, working, and I would come home and I missed so much with my children. My son David and all my kids were involved in activities, some in concerts, some in plays, some in marching bands, some in sports. My son David was on the track team, and not just the track team, but also in the marching band, and there were a lot of his games I did not go to because I was working and didn't have time. It actually came to his senior year, and I made him the promise that I wasn't going to miss one single one of his games that entire senior year. And I didn't. I kept that promise. And sometimes I really had to work. I had to shut job sites down early so I could go home and say, I'm sorry, guys, I made a promise to my son and I'm going to keep it. And I did. I did keep that promise, but you know what? It didn't have the effect I wanted. He actually was angry. And it was kind of one of those things, it's like too little, too late, Dad. I needed you when I was younger. I always looked for you when you weren't there. Sometimes you'd make it, but most of the time you weren't there. And you're there now, but it doesn't matter to me anymore. And be careful of that. Don't let it get to that point. When you invest in love by giving of yourself, and if you are obsessed with your job and your career and everything is at the expense of your family, you are not investing in your love. The gift of your presence is a vitally important gift. My daughter Jeannie, when she was 9 years old, was in a school concert, and it was one of her first school concerts. She was singing. I was working out of town, and I like to push it right to the limit. You know, my concert starts at 7. It's a 2-hour drive. If we leave here right at 5, I can get there right in time. Well, I worked late. And I sped the whole way home on that 2-hour drive, but I still didn't get there in time. I came in right before the very last song. Thankfully, that was the song that was so important to her. And it was the first time I'd ever heard it. It's a song that you probably heard. I'm sure you have. It's called You Raise Me Up. I don't know who the first person who ever sang that is. Josh Groban was one of the big ones who made it famous. The Christian group Selah, I think they wrote a second verse to it. I mean, you could look at it as in terms of a mentor or someone that's important to you, or I look at it and I think of God raising me up and being there for me when I am down. But Jeannie sang that song in that concert with the rest of her choir. And then I ran into her in the hallway after that concert. She said, Daddy, I looked for you all night long and I didn't see you. Did you come? Did you see me? She said, did you hear my song? You raised me up. And I did. And she was so excited. She didn't see me there, but she was glad that I made it for the end. I wished I'd been there for the whole thing. I was honest with her. I told her I came in late, but I did get to see that one last. All right, more technical difficulties. Our battery died. We had to plug in our recorder, so we're shooting at a different angle now. We were talking about the gift of presence and how I had heard that song. You know, to this day, every time I hear that song, I start to cry. And you know what? I think of Jeannie. I think of her 9 years old. And I remember all those things. I remember all the times that I wish I'd done more. And studying and preparing for this sermon and these love languages, I'm learning a lot about things that I missed and things that I didn't do right when it comes to quality time with my children or quality time with my spouse. The gift of your presence is such a vitally important gift. When you invest in love by giving of yourself, by giving them your time over something else, you know what you're doing? You're giving them a gift. You're giving them the gift of yourself. And some people, they don't even, some people can't even interpret or communicate love any other way than this love language that I'm talking about right now. The gift of presence and being with them is everything to them. Something, it's that physical presence. And maybe some of you out there listening to me online right now, you're saying, that's it, that's my love language, preacher. The gift of presence, your presence, the presence of my spouse, the presence of my children. I want that. That's how I feel love. That's how I communicate love. That's an important part of my life. And if this is your love language, I'm going to challenge you to do something today. If this is how you communicate love, is through the gift of presence, physical presence, or just gift giving at all. Now look here. Listen to me. I'm going to challenge you to do something today. If receiving gifts, and not just physical gifts, but also that emotional gift, the gift of your presence. If you realize today that your primary way of sharing love and interpreting love to one another is through gift giving or a gift of presence or receiving those things, I want to encourage you. Vocalize that to your mate. Let them know. Tell them about it. Let them know that that this is an important thing to me, and this is how I communicate love. Verbalize it to them. Let your mate know. Express it. It's okay. Sometimes this is overlooked. But if this is how you receive love and this is important to you, let them know. It's okay to do that. And mate, husband, spouse, significant other, whatever you are in your relationship, if the person you love comes up to you and communicates that with you, that this is their gift of love, I challenge you to do something. Listen to them. Listen to them and respond. Listen to them. They're telling you something. It's important to them. The heart of love is the spirit of giving, isn't it? Isn't that the heart of love? Giving of ourselves to each other, giving things to each other, quality time, words of affirmation. That's something that you're giving. You're giving a compliment. Quality time, you're giving of yourself. Gift giving is something that you care about, that you do nice for them. The spirit of love is in the gift giving. You find it all through the Bible. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. He gave. All through the Scripture, love is emphasized by some sort of giving. It's the way we show love. It's the way God shows love to us. And I want to encourage you, if you're listening to me, and maybe the light bulb went off, and you're like, this is it. This is my love language, that gift giving, or that quality time, and the light goes off, and you understand that. Or maybe you're married to someone and this is their love language. This is how they measure and receive love, is this the gift giving. And then they receive gifts. You know what? Honestly, men, if your wife has the love language of gift giving, you've got it made. I mean, just stop and think about it. If all you have to do to express love to them is just buy them a gift, I mean, you've got it made. I mean, that's easier to do than gift your time. That's easier. If your love language, their love language is words of affirmation, you just have to sit around and write down compliments that you can try to memorize and think to give them, because you always have to think of something new to say. Gift giving, you can just buy them a gift and it's good. I mean, you literally have got it made. It is the easiest thing in the world to do, is to give someone a gift. That's the easiest thing to do. Anyone can do that. And as we prepare to close, we talked about these two love languages tonight, quality time and the giving and receiving of gifts. And some of you are saying, this isn't for me, preacher. I mean, I'm not buying it. It sounds silly to me. It sounds vain to me. It sounds selfish to me. Probably receiving gifts is not your love language, if that's your attitude. And quality time, you say, well, I don't have any need for that. Well, it's probably not your love language. And all that gushy, mushy, you look good and stuff, I don't need that either. Well, probably not your love language. Next week, we'll get to you. So you're going to have to come back here one more time. Next week, we're going to get to the fourth and fifth way that people express love to one another. And you're going to have to come back to hear it so you can hear what your love language is. And I'm going to give you some homework. As we get ready to close, I want you, very simple, again, just like last week, this was not an evangelistic service. This was a service on trying to help you understand the way your mate receives love, and to help you give it in such a way that she can receive, and help her understand how you love, so that you can receive love from her and be able to relate that to one another. And your homework, I want you to study the scripture that we read in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8. And I want you to ask yourself about your love to others in light of this passage of scripture and these languages of love that we have already given. Am I expressing love in words of affirmation, or gift giving, or quality time? Am I expressing love to my mate in the spirit of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8? Is my heart in the right place when I do this? Am I doing this the way that God has set for me to do? That's your homework. Do a little bit of studying, do a little bit of soul searching. Keep on giving those words of affirmation. Pay attention to that love language. Pay attention to that body language. Pay attention to that need for quality time. If your spouse has that gift, that receiving of gift, pay attention to that. Focus on that. If you're listening to this sermon online, those of you who are here in church in person, you're going to have to go watch it online. If you're listening to this sermon online, I gave a lot of information. It's okay to start this over and get some notes and write some of this down, because trust me, this is so important for you and so important for your marriage. Pay attention to it. Give some consideration to your spouse. Give some consideration to how they receive love, and understand it's not always the same way that you do. It very well is something different. And when you're giving love to them, as I said, giving love, if you love them, give them love in the way that they receive it. Don't just expect they're going to understand and know what you mean. Give them love in the way that they receive it. By the way, that's a gift of love. If your love language is not quality time and they want to spend time with you, that is a gift of love for you to give yourself to them. That is a gift that you can do for them. And it's important. It is so important. I'd like to thank you for joining us today at the Sword and Trowel Revival Fellowship. We had a couple technical difficulties there. I'm sorry. I guess I could go through and try to redo this sermon again, but there was a lot in here, and we're probably not going to do that. So, it's recorded live, and there it is. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you paid attention. And I hope that you will be with us next time for the conclusion of our 3-part series on the 5 languages of love, discovering your love language, discovering your mate's love language, and helping to develop that relationship with them. For those of you who are not saved, again, this was not an evangelistic sermon. So I would encourage you to check out some of our other videos online. And you can learn the message of salvation, the plan of salvation, from the different materials that we have online. I don't want you to go away not saved. But this message is primarily for people in the church. We're assuming that you're saved if you're even listening to it. And we're trying to help your relationships, which is all part of growing together, that love, and being able to have a good and healthy marriage, which is what the Lord would like to have you do too. Thank you for joining us today at the Sword and Trowel Revival Fellowship. May God bless you as you go on your way. You have a wonderful day. Take care, and God bless.